Thanks for watching the Council in Brief. I'm Susan Kennedy. We're here with a wrap of all the news of the Montgomery County Council for this first week in February. First this week, a report from the Montgomery Organizational Reform Commission. The panel was formed last year and charged with the task of guiding the county toward creating efficient models of providing services and operations. The council heard recommendations for consolidating functions performed by the county.
We dealt into a number of different organizations within the county government, looking at the structure, looking at how they were operated, and how we could possibly come up with some cost savings and some efficiencies in those departments. It was a tough job. I mean, when you start to dig down into the roots of the plant, sometimes you don't want to kill the plant. You have to come up with a way of bringing it forward without destroying everything.
We identified a minimum of about $30 million in savings, but we actually think the potential is much, much higher than that. Could conceivably be even hundreds of millions of dollars in savings from the organizational changes that we came up with, and also the changes that we suggested in the collective bargaining process. The one thing I do want to say is we were tremendously impressed with the dedicated and talented workforce that the Montgomery County has, both in the county government and the teachers at Montgomery County Public Schools, and we don't want to do anything to damage the wonderful support that county residents get from the workforce in Montgomery County.
Last week's snowstorm left some hundreds of thousands of Montgomery County residents without power, some of them for days. Councilmember Roger Berliner has sent a letter to the CEO of Pepco, Joseph Rigby, asking him to appear before the council next week to answer questions about response times and communication during those outages.
He previously declined that invitation, and I've asked him to reconsider it, as is our council president. We believe it most appropriate for the CEO, president, and chairman to come before this community and to hear our concerns and to explain from his perspective what they're trying to achieve and why their performance has been what it has been. This is, as I believe Mr. Rigby understands, an infrastructure issue. They have allowed their infrastructure to age. It is weak. That is why on sunny days we have a utility that operates in the lowest quartile in the nation. If you have a utility that operates in the lowest quartile in the nation on sunny days, you can imagine that a storm only accentuates that problem. So that's why we are suffering. We have a weak system that they did not invest in, and now we need some answers, and we need it for them to accelerate their investment.
And now Pepco is coming to us and asking for another rate increase. They want $50 million more a year from Montgomery County to make improvements to provide the service that they should be providing anyway. And I really don't feel that we should pay. I think that they should pay. I think that they can reduce their profits and provide the investments that we need and that we really have been paying for all along.
The council has passed a resolution urging the Maryland General Assembly to pass the Religious Freedom and Civil Marriage Protection Act during this year's legislative session. The measure will allow same-sex couples in the state of Maryland to receive marriage licenses and extend to them all state-administered legal benefits, protections, and obligations. The measure was introduced by Councilmember Nancy Florine and co-sponsored by all 8 of her colleagues. In other news, members of the Transportation and Environment Committee are working on a bill that would increase fines for violating the county sediment control law. As the bill's sponsor, Councilmember Mark Elrich tells us, current civil fines aren't tough enough to deter violators.
What's happened is that increasingly the fines are treated as the cost of doing business, and they'd rather pay the fine and violate the law, pollute the water, and do that rather than pay for really doing sediment control. And my interest actually is in collecting 0 fines. My interest is in creating a fine that somebody thinks, well, I'd rather, and it'll be cheaper to actually obey the law and take care of the water than it is to pay the fine. So, I mean, I'm not looking for a revenue producer, I'm looking at getting people to comply. I mean, in general, I think that in most cases, the purpose of a fine is to deter behavior, not to collect money. And that's certainly my intent here.
Well, that does it for this edition of the Council in Brief. Thanks for watching. For County Cable Montgomery, I'm Susan Kennedy.